tomorrow, the day after, we're just going to do another one. We're just going to send another invite for
Yeah.
a month and a half from now. Just gonna keep doing it. Yeah.
Just wanted to invite you.
Yeah. Well, you weren't able to make the last one, so we're going to.
The stream is up. Let me send you the link
Oh,
to
okay.
it.
Is it like on right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll get out of the streams way.
No, yeah, I mean, we're setting up, so.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter particularly.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like worse that I feel like that they messaged you or last night, because I called them out on it, like at least give like the students want to get involved, at least give them the respect of declining.
Yeah, I don't
and then
know.
for them to do it like the night before, like.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty.
I don't know. Well, it makes me feel like that my post actually like resonated like crap or like we are
Accepting an opponent's invitation, even if it technically is from DPI, makes it like you're a weaker candidate.
Yeah.
From a visceral standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we sent our invitation. You guys sent theirs once they took over. Yeah. And obviously, we didn't have a moderator at first, so we're just like, whoever wants to do it, like we can talk about a host and.
Can I email you the link? That's gonna work best for me.
Oh sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm worried about her. I'm a nurse, so like always one of the worst case scenario. Like she seemed never good. We would see like double from far away. But she won't go to the ER right now, and obviously I go to the worst case scenario. But like, could we just dry eyes? She is sick anyway. Like she's got a bad cough and everything.
All right, there you go.
Thank you. She's not feeling any other symptoms, but that's what I was like. I'm like, if you throw up or you get dizzy or like getting confusion, like call me. I'm calling an ambulance and meeting you at the ER. Because I mean, my mind goes to stroke, of course. But
I was gonna say, do you, is your anxiety higher or like, does knowing what you know make things more anxious or less? I guess
more.
More?
Yeah.
Damn, that's too bad.
Yeah.
I wish it would do the opposite.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what to expect here.
No, I'm going through nursing school. I have treatments. I have millions of diseases. So can this live stream hear us right now?
Sorry?
Can this live stream hear us right now?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Good to know. Well, I'm the only viewer. So. That was good.
Yeah.
Are you sharing on your Facebook?
Yeah, I will send the link out. I'm going to wait a little bit just because we're just hanging out. People don't need to be listening.
Is it possible just during this waiting period that we just mute the mic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
In every city, like there's
Did she email you?
every day.
This guy got answers for all of them.
Getting ready for a big promo coming up. He's like, yeah, but wait, what time is that? Yeah, but like, we need more time. He's like, yeah, but you'll be tomorrow. And he literally replied, was like, yeah, no, we're not getting responses, but just everything about this.
She's got a great Substack too.
Who's the carrier? It's Amazon, I can find, like, not because of my job, I can find the seller who bought it from his phone, just 3D.
Fair enough.
You guys don't need to talk in hushed tones.
We're all library. So I drove my black, they were just next to the couch, and I was just bend the thing, and I took them out.
Yeah, sound
I
quality.
got tricked the screw.
It's just
They
one of
put
the
that sound
most
so
difficult.
I waited like 40 minutes, and he was going
Okay.
It sounded like 35 minutes in.
Yes.
Last year, yes. Beginning of eventually, I was like, and luckily, so I was like, oh, that's bad. We'll just chill. I'll just start looking at it. So it's like, where's the submitted question? You got that.
Yes.
What's going on?
Yeah.
But,
So,
I think I got a new pair of examining. Frame, might be different, like, basically.
I think if it's gonna just be plenty of time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's where the. Oh, where's the focus?
Yeah.
Great.
You're gonna actually like.
You're not gonna like.
They were gonna start like, hey, we'll do a talk show, right?
They'll tell you the way you always
So like, I don't really know. Yeah.
So when you're looking at
What did you like to see? It's okay, 6 o'clock. Remember,
Feel free to ask me for my first 24 hours of donations came from.
don't worry.
where was the show?
All right.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming. This is Progressive Victory at Iowa hosting a town hall with Travis Terrell. He will have 3 minutes to give an opening statement, and then we will move to questions that we received from the public over the past month. If we get through all of those, we will move to open forum questions from all of you. Before we do that, though, I would like to invite my co-lead, Ryan Shaw, to give a little introduction about our org.
So, we just started up this semester, actually. We are a local group of activists and advocates for pushing to the political left. We're trying to operate, we're trying to really get off the ground here and get some momentum in our student population because unfortunately, a lot of people in our age bracket aren't really activated right now. And we've really been trying to change that, and we're looking forward to our talk with Travis here. We hope to have a lot of events in the future, and well, we hope to just have a great time today. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, with that, Travis, Terrell, if you are ready, you have 3 minutes to give opening statements.
3 minutes, okay.
I get the other candidates 3 minutes. Yeah, thank you all for coming today, and especially thank you to PBI for putting this together. When I started this campaign, it basically was a tour of town halls in basically every rural corner of this district. And other than that, it was going to the county Democrat meetings. And every single one of those meetings, the biggest thing they said is we need to motivate young people. We need to get young voters inspired. We need to get them excited to vote. But to me, the biggest way we're gonna do that is by actually giving them the mic and letting them lead the conversation. So it is disappointing to me that the other candidates didn't come to this because we all know how important it is to get young people out there to vote. And as they mentioned, right now, a lot of young people just aren't excited, and we have to reach them. To tell you why I got started running for Congress, it definitely was not something that I had planned out my whole life. The day I decided, I had a phone call with my mom during the Doge era, where Elon Musk was cutting everything in sight. And my mom started crying on the phone call because she said, what am I gonna do if they cut my Social Security? And the good son in me wanted to comfort her and tell her that's not going to happen, you know, which is what I did. But after I got off the call, I started crying because I knew that there was a chance I lied to her, because that is the kind of stuff that gets taken from working families. Because when there are problems in this country and when there's shortage of funds in this country, that money always comes from working people. It doesn't come from the billionaires and the people on top that actually could afford it and the people that have avoided paying their fair share. It comes from people like my mother, who is 70 years old, and despite breaking her back on the job when she was in her mid-60s, is still working to this day. That's just an absolute failure of everything that this country was supposed to stand for. And to me, if we ever want to change the way this country works and have it actually work for working people, the biggest way we do that is with actual working class representation. So that's why I stepped up. DC is the last place on earth I want to be, but somebody has to step up and do it. So I didn't wait around, I just decided to do it.
Okay. All right. So I think, is it all right if I bring up the first of many questions that we got from the public itself? And you were talking a little about Elon Musk and his cuttings. And so my question is, what constitutional amendments and laws do you advocate to minimize the possibility of a fascist regime trying to take over again?
So basically, I mean, for a while there, Donald Trump was basically breaking the Constitution every day. Basically every amendment of the Constitution he was breaking. The biggest ones that he targets are freedom of speech, where he doesn't, he basically blacks out the press that actually reports what he's saying and what he's doing. And then he also attacks freedom of speech by labeling everybody that disagrees with him as terrorists. We see now a group, Antifa, being called terrorists, and it's not even a real organization. To me, all that is an excuse to take any political opponent of his that he does not want having a voice and being able to scare them into silence by branding them as a member of an organization that does not exist. And the scariest part about that to me right now is what's going on with the Venezuelan drug boats, where the excuse on killing people without any hearings, without any approval, is they are terrorists. So, to me, Congress needs to demand hearings on all of that. They need to demand hearings on the fact that how long is it until he starts going after the American citizens that he has labeled terrorists and using that as an excuse to not have any hearings for them. So basically, I remember for a while there, I was actually keeping track every day of the amendments he broke, but I stopped even keeping track because it was every day.
Well, thank you.
Okay, our second question. The military has constantly gotten more and more funding every year, despite our services getting worse every year. As we have the largest military budget in the world, larger than the next 9 largest budgets combined, would you commit to not raising any more money for the military or to voting to freeze military spending?
So I wouldn't really know until I got in there how all the spending is going there. One thing that I would want is actual investigations into the waste that the military does. My dream growing up was to join the Army. Then when I was 17, I broke my foot and didn't have health insurance, so I couldn't get surgery, and I failed the Army physical. But my brother was in the Air Force, and he told me about just the waste that goes on, the $300 toilet seats, the $800 hammers. So the first thing I would want done before I freeze spending is actual looking at where this spending is going and how much of it is actually going to waste and how much of it is just going to lobbyists that donate it to candidates. And when those candidates are elected, they just funnel that money to them. So the thing that I would commit to is demanding a thorough investigation of all those funds and where that money's going, and making sure it's actually being spent on defending the country instead of just rewarding lobbyists. But yeah, as for a full freeze on the military spending, I don't think I would be qualified to commit to doing that without actually looking at all the numbers.
Okay, so to clarify, you'd be looking into military contractors and how much money they are taking as compared to what services that.
Yeah, so basically I would want to look at how the money is rewarded, who it's going to, and if they are jacking up those prices just because they know nobody's going to stop them. Yeah, like the money that they spend right now, so little of it goes to actual defense. And I think that the big portion of our military spending should go to defense, advancing our technologies, because right now a lot of countries are spending a lot of money advancing technology and we're falling behind. But we don't need to be spending hundreds of dollars on hammers, and we also don't need to be sending our money to other countries to use to kill civilians. So I would look into the spending of the military, but with the freeze, I would not know. But yeah, that would be the first thing I would do, is look into the waste, and then also demand that our tax dollars stop going to, bombing hospitals in Gaza.
Okay.
All right, so our third question that was submitted to us is this. Your website states, if your campaign is funded by billionaires, you are not representing your district. You are renting your seat in Congress to the donor class. Why then have you taken $7,000, over half of your campaign funding, from billionaire Jennifer Pritzker? Will you return that contribution?
So, yeah, so that's a funny story that I had my campaign manager, Eric, actually, because she made a donation to me off of a random ActBlue Act or link, and I Googled this company she worked for because it listed CEO as her occupation. And I Googled that and saw it was a nonprofit that builds like community engagement and elevating communities. And I did not look into who she was. Like the only Pritzker I knew was, JB, which to me did not seem like somebody that would be interested in my campaign or even know about it. So it was a really weird story. And when I talked to him about it, our plan was to over time pay it back when we actually had time to start doing fundraising and actually doing donations, because I've never got to that point yet where I've slowed down enough to do phone banking or to text or email. So once we can actually start fundraising, we do plan to pay that back. And the biggest thing I feel good about that donation is after we looked into it, Jennifer Pritzker is the world's first transgender billionaire. And the fact that she believes in me enough to fight for her right as a transgender woman, even though that she sees my policy is going to make her an ex-billionaire, then that means a lot to me. So there's worse billionaires out there, but no, I would not have accepted funds from her either if I knew.
All right. Thank you. This is another question, almost halfway there, specifically talking about transportation. The High Speed Rail Alliance and other advocacy groups each year work harder to develop plans and advocate for increased public transit infrastructure across the country. To what extent will you prioritize public mobility infrastructure funding for the state? And if a plan for regional Midwestern high-speed transit were to be proposed while you're in office, would you commit to supporting high-speed rail across Iowa?
Yeah, so that's actually the first time I've been asked that question at any of these town halls. And it's really good to hear, because public transportation is one of the areas that I think that this country has fallen behind the most. And it's one of the things that's setting us back when we look at other countries. There's just so many places you can go, and you can do a trip that would take hours here in minutes. And investing in more public transportation and also modernizing public transportation infrastructure would be a big goal of mine. Not just for the obvious reasons of cutting down the carbon emissions, which is an absolute need, but also just modernizing our infrastructure. The highways and the interstates were amazing achievements 80 years ago, but right now we are falling behind every other country in transportation, and it's one of those things that's going to set us back if we don't invest in it. And also I think that it's kind of an attack on the lower class of this country that you need a car to function in this country. It's not something that you should have to have unless you live in a major city. You shouldn't have to have that money to do it, because I did not have my first car until I was 23 years old. And it was a 1993 Buick Sable. And I was so proud of the car, but that was the first time that I didn't have to wait for my brother or somebody to take me to work. And it was the first time in my life that I was debt-free enough after working since I was 13 to be able to buy a car. And it really opened up my eyes to how much of a need it is in this country, because you should not have to need a car if you live in the country.
Even if it becomes unpopular, how would you respond to increasing state and federal restrictions on trans and queer existence, especially in the state of Iowa?
So was the question like how much I would fight them?
How much would you fight them?
I would not care if I did not get a single damn vote. I would fight it. To me, people have the right to exist. People have the right to be who they are. And I've actually had people tell me when I'm defending their rights that I've lost their vote, and my answer is I would never had it if that was what costed it, because that is not a controversial subject to me. That is something that nobody has the right to tell somebody who they are when they know. And on the more specific subject, we get asked a lot about, trans youth sports. To me, it's just insulting to think that kids should not be able to play sports because they are not, what people think they are, and that people would want to label them as, when youth sports do nothing except for build confidence and character. And, we've seen over and over in studies that in Iowa, nobody has been injured due to a trans athlete. And it doesn't make the sports more dangerous. And one of the stories I always think back to about the unfairness of it is when I was in 5th grade, I was a pretty good wrestler and I was a pretty big, strong kid. And I got my ass actually whooped by a woman, or a girl. And she actually ended up getting 2nd place in the competition. And I guess that was my first experience that we can't just label people by their gender. And to me, it's insulting to both the trans people and the girls to think that they're not good enough to play.
Okay.
I would just ask a small follow-up question to that. A lot of the attacks that we're seeing now focus less on trans athletes. The rhetoric has moved beyond that into a more erasive type of rhetoric. They want to see my community, the trans community, erased from public life. And they're pushing legislation to do this. A lot of their bathroom bills to ban us from entering the bathrooms that align with our gender, to ban books that are about us and our lives. A lot of these things are specifically designer-made to keep us out of public life and out of public attention. How would you combat these laws and this rhetoric?
Yeah, so first thing is we would have to federalize the anti-discrimination laws. And also we have to attack that excuse that, that it's corrupting people or making them something they're not, because that's just not true. And when somebody is born in a different body than the one that they should be in, my concern would be making them comfortable, not how everybody else feels about it. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to hurt anybody for somebody to actually get to be who they are. So there was not a protection law that would hit my desk or whatever that I would look the other way from. It's disgusting what's happening with the trans community and how they're being targeted and weaponized and being labeled as a cultural distraction when they're not distractions, they're human lives. And we have to look past it and stop calling it a distraction and stop calling it a social issue, because it's the issue of some record numbers of suicides. It's the issues of people not knowing if they're ever gonna be who they are. And one of the things that really has inspired me to get tougher on that portion of policy recently is the young male in Urbandale that recently took his life, and his mom posted the videos of his music, and you could hear the pain in his voice. And to me, that's just a failure of everyone that has built the policy that has shaped the fact that he was being attacked, and the fact that it was safe in his school for a teacher to misgender him. It goes a long way, but it is not a fight that I would ever back down from, whether it cost me from getting elected or cost me from getting reelected. I just would not care.
With that, we'll move on to our next question. What are your specific plans to protect Social Security and Medicare for people like me? I'm 1.5 years from being Medicare ineligible and 3.5 years before I'm hoping to retire. Please don't just complain about what the Republicans are doing or not doing. Please outline your specific plans.
So for Social Security, the first thing is getting rid of the cap. When somebody making $170,000 a year is paying the same amount of Social Security as someone making $37 million a year. and that's what's drying it up. As for protecting Medicare, my plan for healthcare goes far beyond that. Medicare is a great program, but what I want is to join every other major country on earth and have universal healthcare for every American. And the plan to protect, the plan that I support is the one proposed by Senator Sanders, Medicare for All, which a lot of people get stuck on that word Medicare, but this is not Medicare as you know it. Medicare for All protects vision, mental health, healthcare, every woman's healthcare. And it's all paid for by the same small fee on a check that comes out. And it not only saves people money and saves small businesses money, it will save companies as big as mine that employ thousands of people money. My health insurance, my employer's part, is about $13,000 a year. With Medicare for All, they would be paying about $7,000 a year for my health care. And I would be paying about $2,000 a year less. The only people it hurts are the insurance CEOs that I feel like we've done enough for. And I don't really care if a few CEOs have to find jobs at freaking car dealerships. Medicare for All is the only option for this country. It's the only thing that is going to save our healthcare system. And it's a popular idea, not just with Democrats. Independents overwhelmingly support Medicare for All. I believe the latest percentage of Republicans that want universal health care is like 46%. It is a topic that no matter where you go, if you bring up health care, everybody knows this healthcare system is broken. I used to work in an ER, and one of the core memories that's always stuck with me is watching people leave the ER because they were told they were going to be admitted, and the doctor flat out telling them, if you go home, you're probably going to die. And then basically not caring because they were more worried about the cost of what they were going to pay than the fact that they were most likely going to die. And to me, that just goes with my same story of when I broke my foot. The doctor came into the room and said that the foot was shattered. And he said, well, basically what he said is, in his professional opinion, I broke the F out of my foot. He said we had two options, was to do surgery or just put a boot on it and hope for the best. My mom had just started a job as a custodian, so she did not have health insurance. And I was not going to have her go through the third bankruptcy of her life. So I just told him to just put the boot on it. And that's why basically when I leave this room, you'll be seeing me probably walk with a limp. And that's a choice that nobody in the richest country in the world should have to make. Healthcare, when we say healthcare is a human right, I want to see every candidate that says that follow it up with, and that's why I'll guarantee universal healthcare. Because if you don't want to guarantee universal healthcare, you don't think healthcare is a human right.
All right, well, thank you so much for that. Healthcare, I completely agree with this, but one of the last questions is specifically talking about worker rights. For decades in this country, workers' rights have been waning. Wages are declining, working conditions are becoming more unsafe, child labor laws are being rolled back across the nation, and very few people on the national stage seem to be willing to take a stand. How would you commit to bringing workers' rights to the forefront of the conversation and eventually to the legislative floor?
Yeah, so that's also one of the first times I've been asked a question about workers' rights, which I'm really excited for because that's my entire campaign. I've already wrote an extensive bill that is ready to be turned in on workers' rights. When I started this campaign, I decided right away I was not going to be someone that runs with promises on what I'm going to do when I'm elected. I was going to start working long before anybody even decided to vote for me. So I've already wrote, I think, 4 bills now that are ready to turn in. And the one that I was proudest of was my workers' rights bill. I've sent those bills to Howie Klein of Blue America, who was just like the first major PAC to endorse AOC, and those bills got me endorsed by him. So the biggest part of that bill is passing the PRO Act and also getting rid of right to work laws. Because when we let companies decide whether their employees can unionize, we are taking all the power from the employees. And we've seen over and over again that no matter how much we do for the corporations and how much we do for the businesses and how much money they make, it is never going to trickle down. So it's time to stop waiting for that, and it's time to actually take action. The other parts of that bill include raising the minimum wage. I would like to see it be $20 an hour, up and increasing with inflation automatically. Because when people are making the same wage as adults that I made when I was 18, then we have failed. The other parts of that bill include implementing the card check program, where the majority of employees at a business vote to unionize, and the company has no right to stop them. Because when we're seeing over and over, just even at Starbucks, is right like across the street, companies will spend so much more money fighting unions than if they do actually spend like compensating their employees. And the biggest proof that I need that unions work is the amount of money that billionaires spend to try to stop them. So, and then just on another personal level, growing up, I remember when my mom had union jobs, because I remember Christmases where we had presents, and I remember holidays that my mom and dad weren't stressed. Protecting the rights for unions to exist and expand above anything else is my biggest goal as a Congress member.
Thank you. And
so our final prepared question given to us via form is simply, why do you think you are a better candidate than the other candidates in the race?
I'd feel a lot better answering this if they were here. Because I don't want to feel like I'm talking about people that can't defend themselves. But the biggest reasons for me are, number one, I live the life of the vast majority of this district. People that have to make hard decisions every day because they don't have enough money to pay for everything. And if something goes wrong, then they're in trouble. The other things about that are, I have fought for better lives for people in this district my whole time I've been here. One of the things that's bothered me about my primary opponents is they don't show up unless there's cameras. They don't show up unless there's publicity for them. And to me, that's just insulting. And on the subject of one of the particular ones, when he says that he wants to fight for everyday families like mine, it honestly makes me sick. Because this is a person that has spent the vast majority of his life in DC working for some of the most corrupt some of the most corrupt corporations on earth. These companies like Blackstone and Endo International, which, if you don't remember, Endo International is the company that created an opioid that they claimed wasn't addictive, and it vastly blew up the amount of addicted people in this country. And if somebody wants to protect companies like that and claim that they are morally responsible enough to run for Congress, then to me, that's all the red flags I need. But the biggest thing is, I want what's best for the people of this district, because my family is just like the vast majority of the people of this district. So every vote that I make, I'm going to be thinking about how it's going to make life easier for my family. And then in doing that, it's going to make lives easier for so many of your families, I'm sure.
Sorry, just, would you like to talk about Bohannon, Christina Bohannon as well.
Yeah, so Christina is the one that I think that kind of disappears between election season. One of the things that really bothered me was the fact that she wasn't at any of the No King's Day rallies, which might not seem like a big deal to everybody, but that was a big day of resistance in this country. And someone that actually studies constitutional laws should be there standing beside people that are fighting to protect the Constitution on a day that, 15 million people across the country were. I honestly, there's parts of Christina Bohannon that I really respect, and I think that we're closer to in like the same as me and Taylor, but at the end of the day, I want somebody that shows up when it's hard. I want somebody that cares about this district more often than when it's time to run for election. And I want somebody that still understands struggle, because I know that she had a tough time growing up, and there's no taking that away from her. But the times we are facing right now are some of the most difficult times this country has ever seen. One of the things that really sticks with me is I used to work in an ER, and there was a 102-year-old woman in the hallway who we were talking about everything that was going on, and she told me I had never seen anything like this shit. She said this was the hardest and the scariest times that she has seen in her life, and this is a woman that saw World War. So I want candidates that show up, and that goes beyond my election, and it goes beyond my campaign. It's what I look for in a candidate, and it's what I try to be in a candidate. Thank you.
I think with that, we'll move to open forum questions. If you have a question for Terrell, you may come up to one of these microphones and say it out loud, or if that makes you uncomfortable, you can raise your hand and shout it out.
Well, just for you guys, did they respond to you? Did they say they had prior commitments, or did they just not respond at all?
So, okay. So we were able to talk with Christina Bohannon at an event she was at the IMU. Yeah, that's it. So we were able to talk with her. She said pretty much a no. She said she might be able to come, and then we got no further correspondence. She did not answer our emails. And then Taylor Weddick did not answer our emails until after we made a post about him not going to the event. The reason we found out that he was not going to our event was not because he responded to our emails requesting him to join, but because he responded to the Gazette, I believe, after going to Miller Meeks's singular town hall, where he said that he was looking for more experienced media and something about having all candidates on the floor, which I was a little confused about, because from what I saw, there weren't any other major candidates for the primary. But yeah, so no.
I was disappointed not to have the other two candidates here. I was looking forward to hearing what they had to say. But I guess my question for you would be, can you identify any specific policy differences that you have with your opponents?
Yeah, the biggest one for me would be supporting universal health care. They are both the candidates that I speak of that will say that Medicare is a human right, but then when they talk about, healthcare is a human right, but then when they talk about healthcare, their biggest plans for it are rolling back the bills, a tax on Medicaid, which is a start, and we do need to do it immediately, but we have to have universal health care in this country. That would be the biggest one. The other one is that neither one of them will flat out say what's happening in Gaza is genocide. And to me, if you're scared to say that as a candidate, then you're not going to fight for it as a Congress member. And what I want to see is commitments from our officials to keep our tax dollars actually helping us instead of killing women and children in other countries. The other things that I feel is their stances on immigration. Taylor's is one that I haven't heard as much about, but when I heard Christina's stance on immigration being let's get tougher on the border and filming an ad with the sheriff on how she was the tough on the border candidate, that was one of the thoughts in my head when I finally said I am going to run. Because we are not going to win elections by trying to out tough on immigration against Republicans. And more importantly than that, we're not going to help anybody's lives by trying to freaking be tough on the border. So one of the big differences there is one of the bills that I've already wrote is an immigration reform bill, which provides a direct pathway from residency to citizenship. And it also provides protection for people here on work visas from being deported. When 200 employees were deported from JBS that were here on work visas in Ottumwa, that's my hometown, and that is millions of dollars out of a city that is dying already. So the biggest ones that I know are healthcare and immigration, and also just not being scared to say what I will do when I'm elected, because I've always said that if you're too scared to run on policy, then you can never be trusted to fight for it.
For you, and then we'll go back to you. Yes, sir.
Right. Iowa's economy is ranked 49th in the nation. What would you do as a member of Congress to help reverse that trend?
So the biggest things I would do is fight for infrastructural grants here in Iowa, because Iowa has so much that we can work with to make money. Another thing that I am supportive of that I don't run on is the legalization of marijuana, which Iowa would make billions and billions of dollars a year off of. And it's also on that is it's one of the best cover crops out there. So it would cover the water crisis. And yeah, just like upgrading our infrastructure, working with what we have. We don't have the harbors and the oceans that the coastal states do. So we need to work with what we have, and that's farmland. We need to make the most of that, and also just update infrastructure here. And we also have to keep young families here, which is the other issue that kills our economy. And so much of that goes with just actually fighting for policies that a lot of candidates label as social distractions. Because when, LGBTQ plus individuals do not feel safe in Iowa and they leave, then that's just another young worker that's not here supporting the state. We have an aging population. The average farmer in Iowa is 61 years old now. So we have to keep young people here. Otherwise, our economy is just going to continue to sink.
And then I believe you had a question. I'll go to you next.
So who is your political idol and why do you admire them?
Yeah, it's really hard for me to pick one. Obviously, Bernie Sanders would be the big one. The biggest reason is because Bernie Sanders made it so people like me could run for office. And they inspired us, and they actually showed us that there were politicians out there that actually fought for families like mine. Because growing up, my whole life, I was waiting to see somebody fight for my family. I was waiting to see somebody fight for my mom when she'd come home from work exhausted and sore, and to fight for my friends that were just crumbling in a dying city. And Bernie Sanders was the first politician that I saw that would unapologetically say that we need universal health care. And he was the first one that I saw that made raising the minimum wage as a priority. The National Republican Party loves to label me as a Bernie bro, but that's not an insult to me. I'm proud of the fact that Bernie Sanders is one of my heroes. And then outside of Bernie, AOC is another big one, just because she showed that somebody that lived a life without luxury and without all the blessings that so many people have could rise and do great things for people. So those are probably the top two if I had to pick two. If I were to keep going, we'd be here till 2 in the morning.
During the last election cycle, Christina Bohannon spoke out against student loan debt forgiveness. Given the critical importance of the University of Iowa students and new grads to this district, what are some things you would do, Travis, specifically to help get excitement and votes for you from university students and new grads, and particularly to keep new grads in this area to help support the First District economically?
Yeah, on the subject of student loan forgiveness, that's something like I just learned recently that she had said. And that one hurt a little bit because, yeah, like last year, or when I'm on the subject of Bernie now. When Joe Biden was doing the student loan forgiveness, my loan was one of the ones that got forgiven. And I had been paying on that for 20 years. I probably paid triple what I took out. And not having to pay that every month just made my life so much easier. It made it so I didn't have to stress over whether I could pay my car payment or whether I could keep the lights on. It just took one less worry off my table. One of the big plans that I would like to see implemented is tuition-free public college. That is something that I feel like lots of other countries, is another way lots of other countries have surpassed us by prioritizing education. We want a wealthy country. We have to have an educated country that is going to be ready for this next generation of technology. So expanding, then also I want to expand the trade programs, specifically Job Corps, which was one of the biggest tragedies that I've seen the last year of being attacked, because I was a Job Corps graduate. It's something that I wasn't super proud of, but Job Corps was my last chance to graduate, and it changed my life. And not just mine, it changed my brother's life. And more important than what it did for us is it gave me the chance to see what education means to people that grew up in the toughest parts of this country. My best friend at Job Corps grew up in James Street in Omaha, which it's Omaha, but it's basically the most dangerous street in Omaha. And he had saw several family members murdered in front of him. And he really thought he had one path in life, and that was to join a gang. Job Corps provided an escape for him. Education provided an escape for him. We should not be treating education as a privilege in this country. We should be encouraging it. We should be doing everything we can to expand it. And the way that we pay for tuition-free public college, if any of you are curious, is a less than 1% Wall Street tax would pay for public education for everybody in this country.
When you say a Wall Street tax, do you mean on companies that deal on Wall Street, or like my stock investments?
So yeah, it'd basically be for like all of the merging, the acquisitions, the big deals. Like, it's not going to hurt people like my brother who use the Wall Street as a side hustle. And yeah, because right now we have the most powerful people in this country playing games with our lives and our wallets. And they make millions of dollars that we can't do anything with. And I think that it is about time that we stop letting them abuse the system and have that money actually work for us. And thank you for clarifying that. Everybody was probably checking their stock portfolios.
My earliest political consciousness was during the Carter administration. The top marginal tax rate was 70%. I think currently it's 37%. Is there, like when you look at that, you mentioned unbillionaires, some folks earlier. Is there a target that you kind of look at and say somewhere in this range feels right?
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing is I don't think that there should be billionaires, if I'm being honest. But yeah, at the set tax rate, like I definitely think we need to get rid of the limit and raise it for the higher earners and just keep going. 70% could be something we have to do again, but I just think that we just have to get rid of that upper limit, because if we get rid of that upper limit, we can lower everybody else's taxes. And the people that actually need that money, and not just they need that money actually goes into their communities and actually goes into being spent. It makes so much more economic sense for this country than billionaires sticking money on offshore bank accounts or buying $15 million statues. I don't know like the limit I would look at, but I would definitely raise the upper limit on taxes and use that to lower the taxes on probably everybody in this room. I mean, if one of you has $400 million, I don't know about, congratulations. And also, I mean, you can donate to me too.
Yes, I have a question. So Iowa was rated like one of the worst in hospitals, and we're currently facing a public health crisis. We're one of the states that has the highest cancer rate. So I'm just curious as to how you would advocate for us, like environmental policies, medical, public health policies, as well as with like the rise in technology, data centers being built here. How would you advocate for us?
The no mic thing just doesn't work for all of us. I didn't hear any of that. Sorry.
I could,
Please state the question.
yeah, I could try to break it down piece by piece. So, yeah, it's kind of multi-layered, but on the cancer crisis, the first thing that we need to do is not be scared to acknowledge why we're getting cancer. And we can't be scared to use the word regulation. And we also can't just pretend that, you know, big AG is not poisoning our water. So, one of the things I would want to do is actually put policy on them to make it so that they have to do the same thing that family farmers do, and they have to be as closely watched as them. And another thing that I want to see is, you know, this rise of the hog complexes being shut down. Because when I drive home and every day there's just a new hog confinement, like all that waste is just going directly into poisoning us. And it's not, all it's doing is making unsafe conditions, making a small amount of people very wealthy by not caring at all about what they're doing to other people. And that's just not how I think that this country should be. As for the healthcare infrastructure, if that was part of the question, is part of the Medicare for All plan puts money towards updating hospitals and modernizing hospitals as well. And then on part of my immigration reform bill includes like fast tracking to citizenship for immigrants that work in healthcare in rural communities or places like Iowa that have a shortage of basically everything. And another thing that I think I would have to do is we need to get nursing like listed as a professional again. That's just something that I never thought we would have to argue about, but it's healthcare to me is always going to be the big issue. And because when you look at healthcare, it ties directly into the theme of what got me started, which is the rights of working people, because the rich and powerful don't have to worry about the troubling healthcare system because they have the best doctors in the world. And the rest of us have towns of 3,000 citizens and 2 ER doctors. I would want to see grants put into these communities that are understaffed, and also the immigration bills, the first bill that I plan to submit, and immediately get an influx of people that can come here and be nurses and not have to worry about deportation when all they're doing is trying to improve our country and one of its most, biggest needs. If there's anything I missed, feel free to point it out.
Data centers.
Oh yeah, the data centers.
Oh yeah, the data centers. So yeah, one of the data centers kind of go with my water concern because they use so much and they don't create jobs. Data centers do nothing but take land and sit there. We need to find ways to get them to just make their own water. They need that. And we also need to cut back on where they're being built and also make them pay for their own electric. Like, one of the big concerns I hear when I talk to people in areas that have these data centers coming up is their electric bills are jacked up because they're helping pay for that. We have to have them pay their own way because data centers are, to me, one of the biggest wastes out there. We obviously need them to advance AI, but they need to pay for themselves.
So we actually got a question from the chat here.
Live on YouTube for those of you who
I
are
totally forgot we were live on YouTube.
Right over there. Say that to the camera.
So one of our viewers wants to know Travis's positions on women's reproductive health care and specifically the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, so this is actually something that came to my attention that I do not talk about enough, how strongly I feel about it. Overturning Roe v. Wade was another one of those things that we should even have to consider happening. To me, it's nobody's right to tell a woman what to do with her body. And also, it's very closed-minded how a lot of people look at women's health as just abortion. When in every county in Iowa either is understaffed with OBGYNs or they have none. So there's so many people, these clinics that are being attacked are the only health care they get. So my stance on women's rights, especially with health care, is that it's their right. That is not something that, it's something to me that's even hard to talk about because it's hard to believe it's debatable. But I need to do a better job of bringing this up. I know people that have had abortions and I've seen what it does to them. I've seen people that couldn't get off the couch for days because they were so heartbroken over the toughest decision of their life. So when we make that decision even harder on them, all we're doing is kicking people when they're down. And to me, that is something that there's no place for in this country. We have to protect women's rights to health. And that's something that another thing that I would not budge on. And another one of those things that people have told me cost me their vote, and I just told them thank you.
I've got a question. Full disclosure, I'm a volunteer, but I'm not a plant. He didn't tell me to ask this, but genuine question. One thing that I've been frustrated about, and I'd love to ask just Democrats in Iowa in general, is there seems to be I have more of an issue with what people don't talk about in their campaigns than often what they are talking about. I did a keyword search on certain political people in the race, and I couldn't find the word ice except when they were talking about ice cream, or Gaza, except when they were talking about October 7th or something, right? So what do you say to Iowans who are saying those issues aren't dinner table issues and therefore you shouldn't be running on them?
Yeah, to those people I'd say that they're not at the right kitchen tables then, because the rights of immigrants is a serious issue, and we've seen it become so much prevalent where people in our district, one after another, are being illegally deported. They go to their hearing as a citizen, and a judge stamps it, sorry, not a citizen, legally resident, and then the judge stamps it, and they walk out that door and ICE is waiting for them. One of the first things specifically with ICE I would like to see is I want to pass a bill that they cannot wear masks, because if they're that scared to show their face, then they know what they're doing is wrong. And there's no reason for them to be able to hide their identities when they are kidnapping people off the streets. And on the subject of Gaza, I feel like every candidate should be talking about it, because people need to understand that even if you don't watch the news and want to cry, like some of us do when they see women and children being murdered, what they need to speak to people about is that's our tax dollars doing it. If our tax dollars stop buying those bombs, then those hospitals stop getting blown up. We stop seeing women and children killed daily there. And to me, it's one of those things that if you're scared to talk about it as a candidate, then I don't trust you to talk about it as a representative. Because if you're worried about being elected, then aren't you going to be worried about getting reelected? So I want to see candidates talk about the things that people care about. And if they think that the rights of immigrants is not a serious issue, then they need to leave their house and see what's happening. I have seen in so many cities and towns, just in this district, beloved community members taken, and the entire community coming to support them and demand they come back, and it being ignored. So I feel like if a candidate is not talking about these issues, you need to ask them why. Thank you.
One of the complaints leveled against the left, and especially the progressive left, is that we are a capitalist nation, we are the richest nation, the highest GDP in the world. If you raise taxes on the rich, you're only going to hurt our position as the richest country in the world. How would you respond?
So my response to that is we tried trickle-down economics and it didn't work. And right now we see wages staying stagnant and the prices of everything are still going up. I'm not going to say like raising taxes is going to lower cost. It's not. But nothing is going to stop corporate greed except for actually taxing it. And when they do respond with raising prices on stuff, which they're going to do anyways, people will have the extra money to spend, because right now the costs of everything are basically at COVID numbers, because they just realized they could charge people this, so they decided that's the cost for now on. And corporate greed is not going anywhere regardless of tax rates on the rich. And with that money actually being in the community, it's going to generate more money. So my response to that basically is corporate greed is going to happen whether we tax the rich or not.
My full disclosure is that I actually know the answer to the question I'm asking, but I think it's something that people should know. Where can those policies that you said that you've written 4 bills already, where can those be found? People want to read them.
My website has a very detailed policy section. I need to get it upgraded or updated to actually list the specific bills, because some of them aren't on there. I posted them on my Facebook over time, but I realized my Facebook went from, like 100 followers to 1,900 in a few months. So not everybody has seen it. So I do need to get them on my website. But my website has a very, very detailed policy section. And I wish every candidate's did, but yeah, you can go on my website, see where I stand on basically every issue.
What's the website?
Oh, terrellforcongress.com. It's very hard to remember.
Yeah, I have another question, like kind of coinciding with it. So, Iowa, there's 6 county jails in Iowa that currently work with ICE, have like relationship with
good one, I just didn't hear most of it.
Yes, so I'm asking him if he would, with the relationships that ICE has with the local police officers, if he would be willing to limit that or expand that.
287 G agreements, is that what they're called?
Yeah, I would definitely want to limit that. And it goes beyond just the rights of the immigrants themselves. It goes to the personal information aspect of it, where I want to see personal information of people protected much more than it is. But that is an issue that needs to stop, because right now, a lot of those departments feel like they have no choice but to cooperate with ICE because they are scared of losing funding. I would definitely like to see it so they don't, because right now ICE has more money than every other Justice Department branch in this country. And if they still need help from local officials, then obviously they're not doing their job, and we need to take some of that money back. Sorry. But yeah, I definitely would want to see that limited or eliminated, because we don't need to be forcing local officials to work with fascist regimes.
Sorry, it's my first introduction to you as a candidate. Give me the 30-second elevator speech for each of the 4 bills. I'm not familiar with it.
So the immigration reform bill, basically the key part of that is the direct pathway from residency to citizenship. That was the initial part of the bill, because part of one of my jobs was to schedule the immigration physicals that people need to become a citizen. And I found how short notice they get to get those done. And it's a very stressful situation. And so I feel like we need to simplify that. And I also know that if somebody has been here paying taxes for 20 years, they deserve to be a citizen. But the workers' rights bill, which is the first one I wrote, the biggest aspects of that was raising the minimum wage, passing the PRO Act, and getting rid of right to work laws. The healthcare reform bill was actually the first one I wrote, the one that got me endorsed by Blue America. Since then, I've kind of walked away from that, because to me that bill was my stepping stone to get to universal healthcare. But then the more I talk to people, I realize we don't have time for a stepping stone to get to universal healthcare. So that bill was going to have a wealth tax on billionaires, which is another reason I was surprised one donated to me. And it was going to be a wealth tax on everything of their income. And it was going to pay to limit out-of-pocket expenses for people based on their incomes. It took a lot of time, so I was kind of disappointed when I got out there and realized I'm not going to fight for this bill because there's not time to fight for this bill. Oh gosh. And then the other one was a bill requiring elected officials to actually hold town halls and speak to their constituents. That one is very, very probably immaturely labeled the Marinette Miller Meeks bill. And it makes it so, I mean, if representatives are not doing the biggest part of their job, which is speaking to their constituents and going back to DC and representing them, then their office allowance get cut. Because we don't need people just getting elected and forgetting about the people that got them elected. And that's oddly been the most popular bill when I talk to non-Democrat independent voters, because you'd think with all the issues going on that there'd be bigger concerns, but the biggest concern I hear from Republicans is they're just tired of their representatives not showing up. I know that Randy Feenstra in particular is called No Show Randy by a lot of Republicans. And I want to see elected officials required to speak to the people that put them there. And more importantly, speaking to the people that voted against them. Because we have to hear their opinions as well, because those are the ones that we don't hear enough. So that bill, to be honest, was a little bit less of a serious one than my other one, but I am actually going to propose it with that name.
I'll give another world. So I live in Jefferson County, and I work a lot with the issues around food insecurity and hunger in our community. Last time I spoke to the city council, 10% of the population in the county suffers from food insecurity, which is a nice way of saying there's not enough food to eat today and probably not enough food to eat tomorrow. So you're feeling a little bit insecure about your food. The statistic that really got my attention was that 14% of school-aged children face food insecurity in our county, and our county is actually a little bit better than others. And I work for a food bank once a month. 5 years ago, we served 15 households once a month. This last month, we served over 200. It's about a 7-fold increase in 5 years. So, again, what would you do to help reverse this trend? Because with the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare increases coming, ACA increases coming, SNAP benefits being cut, all of these numbers are just going to spike. So, what would you do?
Yeah. So, food insecurity is one of those terms that I felt like it was a bad idea to get politically correct on, because we should say those people are starving. Those people don't have food. And the first thing is obviously getting rid of the SNAP cuts. Yeah. And I'd also like to see SNAP expanded to more of the lower middle class, because to be honest, this country does not have a lower middle class anymore. It basically has the wealthy and the not wealthy. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see that expanded. My family growing up was always just right outside the health benefit. So I saw my mom struggling and just trying to figure out how she was going to feed us. I would like to see SNAP expanded, not cut, because even when you go beyond SNAP and how it helps the people that it immediately goes to, I believe the number is SNAP generates $1.50 for each dollar put into it. So it's a program that doesn't just help the family, it helps the communities, because it gets that money flowing into them. And it's another one of those examples of how raising the minimum wage is going to help, because it actually gets that money flowing. And get back to the question, I want to see countrywide free school lunch. I don't think that anybody should have to pay for their school lunch. And growing up, I remember how embarrassing it was when I didn't have money to pay for my school lunch. And that's something that, like you said, in the richest country in the world, no kid should have to do. And they're required to be there, so we should be feeding them. And we should definitely be expanding the summer food programs, not cutting them and making it harder for the families to actually get the food. I toured the Coralville Food Pantry recently, and they told me, I think they see every week, they see like 5 multiple new families. So the food crisis and the hunger crisis is just getting worse and worse. And it's something that should be attacked very quickly, because no kid should be going hungry. I remember friends that were so smart growing up, and they struggled with their grades, they struggled with everything in school. It's because of that night that they didn't eat. We need to face that, and it might not be the most PC thing, but I would not be scared to call it is, and that's family starving. And that would be a big issue of my campaign, and as an elected official, is to tackle that. When I grew up, I realized that I was actually luckier than a lot of families, but I remember we had an event called Working Man's Christmas, where union members would get together and share gifts and bags of food. And growing up, Working Man's Christmas was the only time in my life that I saw an orange, because my family couldn't afford food that there was a chance that it might not get ate. I want to see expansions to healthy food programs. I want to see expansions to SNAP. I want to see every family in this country not having to choose between feeding their children and keeping their water running. If there's more to your question, sorry.
No, it was great. I love the details. I love the passion, so thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question from our YouTube live chat. They want to know your thoughts on housing affordability, specifically with regards to the bill that has been proposed to raise property taxes. They say it only helps homeowners and leaves behind those who are renting, which is the majority of people in this country.
Yeah, that's one of my problems right now with the Republican Party's plan, like making property tax the key issue they run on, is that does help a very limited amount of people. If we want to cut anything, that should not be the tax we're looking at. I think that right now the housing crisis in this country is manufactured. It's not real. There are enough, we can get enough houses to house everybody in this country. It is a choice in this country that we have people living on the streets. It's a choice that we have people kicked out of their apartments. On specific policies I would like to see is rent freezes. I would like to see it so landlords can't raise rent over the cost or the cost of living, and like make it so you can't get into an apartment paying, you know, like I did, $1,000 a month, and 2 years later have it be $1,350 a month. That's unrealistic for families to be able to keep up with. I think that the big issue there is we need to accept that the housing crisis is something that can be fixed, and it's another choice that this country is allowed to have happen.
Actually, I'd like to add on to that question, because recently in Iowa City, there's been work going into developing a tenants union here. And I want to ask, would you be in support of having a tenants union around the entire nation, not just like in specific spots that it's just allowed to be in?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I was actually endorsed by the Iowa City Tenants Union. And that meant a lot to me because I am still a tenant. I still rent. I would love to see a nationwide tenants union. The first question I asked them when they told me about that is, when are you guys going to expand to Tiffin? Because I'd love to start it there. Tenants are a very abused population. They basically have to accept what they're handed. And at the meeting I went to them, and when we went around the table and everybody shared their stories of their most difficult experience in a rental, it was just unreal, the things people have to live with. Mine was when I used to live in a different apartment. I lived in a basement apartment, and my living room was flooded for 3 weeks before the landlord would come, send a company to fix it, and he would not allow me to fix it. And that was something I learned I just had to deal with. We need tenants' rights in this country because it is a very exploited population, and it's not mostly the lower earners in this country. And it goes back to just the most exploited groups in this country. And that is what I care about.
Ask just one more follow-up question on this. You said that lowering property taxes doesn't help tenants, doesn't help renters. What specific policy would you propose? Because there are quite a few that are flying around with rent freeze or rent stabilization or vacancy fees. Are there any of those or any others that you would propose in Congress to?
Yeah, the first ones I would want is the rent freezes and rent stabilization. I want to see it so landlords can't buy up every house on a block, and now there's a housing crisis in that town. I want to see Airbnb actually taxed more. I want to see it so properties are not treated as chips that make people rich, and they're treated as homes. So rent stabilization and rent freezes on unjust rent raising is something I really want to see. And I think that here and another few years, we're going to have a huge success on that front when New York City implements it. And we're going to see how it changes people's lives firsthand. I'm really excited for that. And I think it's going to really change a lot of people's minds on what's possible when we vote for people that care.
The minimum age for Congress is 25, minimum age for Senate is 30. Should there be a maximum age?
So this is something I actually go back and forth on. I think there should be term limits. When it comes to the maximum age, I go back and forth because I know, like, in my job, I have met 90-year-olds that are just as witty and with it as I am. And I have met 60-year-olds that, you know, like, can't get anything out. Like, but I think that the term limits is the big one. I do think when we have to look at the age limit, just because we've seen how deaths in office affect the country, because Democrat deaths in office is what got the bill passed. So I definitely want to see term limits. Age is something that I would want to look more into, because I don't want to discriminate people based on their age when everybody's different.
Are you just protecting Burn?
Just the one guy.
It's a sensitive subject for me. I already got called as ageist once.
So this is just kind of a follow-up because you mentioned New York City. So with Mayor-elect Mamdani being obviously a democratic socialist, he has a lot of policies fairly similar to you. Obviously, can't be the same. You live in Iowa, he lives in New York City. But the rent freeze thing specifically is very connected to him. And I'm wondering, what's your opinion on him broadly, and this new attempt at populism on the left?
Yeah, I think my opinion of him is that he is going to change New York City for the better, and very quickly. I think that what he's going to do is open up a lot of people's eyes to what life on the left is like. We, in this country, always stay in the middle, or we go further to the right. We've never went to the left. And we've seen what happens now when we drift too far to the right. I think that populist officials like Mamdani are going to change a lot of people's minds. And we're going to see a lot more candidates running on stuff that I run on and stuff that he ran on, because they're going to see that's what actually helps people. And to some of them, it's just going to be, they're going to see that as what gets them elected. But I think that he is one of the, if I were to go back to the inspirations, one of the more recent ones. He started at 3% in the polls or something like that. And he won the biggest city in the country, which represents, to me, this country almost more than even like the state of Iowa with the diversity of demographics. So his win showed that across every single group of people that this is winning policy, and that if you actually run on helping people and changing their lives instead of acting like it's impossible, then you will win. And I think that we're going to see very good things come out of New York City.
I think we have time for probably 2 more questions.
Yeah, 2 or 3 more questions. Any in the crowd right now?
So, Miller Meeks has been pushing on banning congressional trading for stocks and spouses, despite the fact that her husband owns, which I haven't verified, but I've heard that. She's pulled first class recently, so there's a lot of perks that she's been having, and she's been exploiting. So, where's your stance on something like that?
Yeah, banning congressional stock trading was one of the first policies that when I would do town halls previously, that I would bring up. That, along with ending Citizens United. The congressional stock trading, to me, it should be illegal. They're benefiting off of insider information, which gets people like what Martha Stewart put in prison. And we have politicians doing it and making millions of dollars. Like, the biggest example I always like to point out is Marjorie Taylor Greene. That woman did not become a multi-millionaire off of her brain. She became that rich because she was abusing a system. And that's something that should be common sense to close the door on.
I have one question myself, and it's pertaining to a little bit of environmentalism, focusing on, because in years past, there's been ideas of like a Green New Deal, bringing like greener infrastructure into like the national stage. And I'm just wondering, would you agree to like supporting such a kind of bill like now, like in like this day and age?
Yeah, so being a supporter of the Green New Deal is one of the requirements to be endorsed by Blue America. So it was a commitment I made because protecting the environment, a lot of people like to label those of us that actually care about it like tree huggers, whatever, but it goes into so much more. When we ruin the environment, it's costing us money. So we're having to put up everything to fix it. And when we're having to spend money on problems that we generated that didn't have to be there in the first place, we're just basically creating issues that don't have to happen, which I think I just repeated myself, but it's the Green New Deal and environmental issues in general are another issue that I like to talk to people about, that even if you don't care about the things I do about, care about the fact that these problems are costing you money.
I have one more. Ethanol, yes or no?
So that's something, honestly, I have to look into. My big thing on it is I want to see it as not the only way that Iowa farmers can make money. That's another one of the reasons that, like I mentioned, I'm pro-legalization of cannabis, because we need to expand the ways that Iowa farmers can make money. Because right now we're growing corn just for ethanol. Like, we like to say Iowa feeds the nation. It doesn't. It creates ethanol and feeds hogs. And I want to see it so we actually feed the nation. We have the best farmland in the country. Let's use it.
I think that's all the questions we have, unless there's any like last minutes. Going once.
Where will your celebration party be?
Celebration party.
Yeah.
A celebration party after I win.
Yeah.
That's something I've thought about, but I haven't really decided because it's still so far away.
Now, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it.
Thank you. Maybe we'll be here.
Where can people go if they want to support you, donate, get yard signs, whatever?
Yeah, so I'm Terrell for Congress, basically on every social media. My Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and terrellforcongress.com. You can donate on there. We do need donations, but just as important as that is volunteers, because we're not going to be the campaign that raises the most money, and we're not going to try to be. I am going to swallow my pride and vote bank, but we are never going to reach that number. If we win the primary and we put a progressive as the candidate in Iowa, then we'll start seeing that money. But for the primary, we need volunteers. We do need donations, but it's all at terrellforcongress.com. And yard signs, we don't really charge for it. If you want one, it's helping me, so just let me know.
Can we give it up for Travis Terrell? Once again, the only candidate who came here today, so.
We would have shouted out the other people's stuff, but they did not.
And thanks to PBI.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really sorry everybody just got me.
Oh.
Yeah.
We've got lots of great quotes.
Bill Murray.
Nothing much. How about you?
Yeah.